Previously, as Jin-Woo saved Hae-in's life by transforming Byung into a shadow soldier. As the Korean hunters departed, Jin-Woo stayed behind to clear the remaining ants. Afterward, he reached level 100 and resurrected the Ant King as his shadow soldier, naming him Beru. New characters were introduced, including a Chinese five-star hunter and two potential future enemies, while Jin-Woo's father observed them from the shadows. After the Jeju Island raid, Jin-Woo honored those who had lost their lives. He then secured permission to open his own guild before stepping into another Red Gate alone. Inside the Red Gate, Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers fought against the gate's monsters. He managed to find the boss, and the creature asked him if he was the one who had been killing his people. It remarks with twisted amusement how impressed it is that Jin-Woo managed to make it this far despite having such a small, seemingly fragile body. But that amusement quickly turns to menace. The creature raises its hand and signals to its forces. He had already stationed his minions throughout the area, ready to spring a deadly ambush. But something's wrong. Nothing happens. The creature glances around in confusion. The air stays silent. No allies appear from the shadows. No attack is launched. Just an unsettling quiet. A frown begins to form on the creature's face. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo remains still, calm, his gaze fixed firmly on his opponent. Not a trace of panic shows on his face. Then Jin-Woo finally speaks. "Call me small again." "That's funny." He raises his hand and gives a subtle signal. Suddenly, from the dark edges of the forest, movement stirs. One by one, figures emerge. Shadow soldiers, loyal and fierce, marching out with unwavering purpose. Some drag behind them the severed heads of the enemies fallen. The forest grows darker as the ground begins to fill with Jin-Woo's summoned army. Jin-Woo, standing tall among his shadows, taunts once more. "Looks like no one from your side made it out." Confusion turns into dread. Then, thud. Something hits the creature square in the face. Startled, it reaches up and grabs the object. It's another corpse, one of its own. Eyes wide, the creature lifts its head and sees Jin-Woo again, this time surrounded by a vast army. A sea of darkness prepared to devour anything in its path. Panic fully takes over. The creature shouts in desperation, ordering any remaining forces to attack and destroy Jin-Woo's army. But Jin-Woo remains composed. He calmly gives his order. "Wipe them out." Both sides surge forward and the battlefield erupts. But from the very first clash, it's clear the outcome is already decided. Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers are faster, stronger, and better organized. They strike with deadly precision, overwhelming the enemy with little resistance. As the intense battle unfolds, Sunung Jin-Woo begins advancing toward the dungeon's boss. Leading the way ahead of him is Tank, the enormous shadow bear who crashes through enemy lines with ease, clearing a path for his master. Sensing the threat, the boss monster erupts with rage. It roars and charges directly at Jin-Woo, attempting to stop him before he can get closer. But before it can land a single blow, two powerful shadows intervene. Boo swoops in with incredible speed, slicing off one of the boss's arms with razor-sharp claws. Igris follows right behind, his sword flashing through the air as he severs one of the creature's legs. The massive beast collapses to the ground, overwhelmed. As it tries to lift its head, another presence looms over it. Tusk, the high mage of Jin-Woo's army. Without hesitation, Tusk casts inverse gravity, pinning the boss down with an unseen force. The ground buckles beneath the weight, rendering the monster completely immobile. Step by step, Jin-Woo approaches. Calm, he comes face to face with the fallen creature. His voice is low and cold. "You'll answer my questions," Jin-Woo says. "It'll hurt less if you cooperate." He proceeds to interrogate the boss, trying to extract vital information, but once it's over, Jin-Woo stands before its lifeless corpse, silently reflecting. Again, nothing useful. He suspects the same interference as before. The system itself may be blocking the flow of information. Frustrated but not surprised, Jin-Woo opens his inventory. "I'll figure it out eventually," he mutters. So it's fine. From within the inventory, he retrieves a peculiar object, a key. It's one he obtained earlier from a cursed random box. Jin-Woo recalls an important moment. He had reached level 100 during the Jeju Island raid. That achievement fulfilled the minimum requirement to unlock a special dungeon. Now the item's name becomes visible. Key to the Temple of Karen. A countdown timer ticks beside the key's description, indicating the limited window of time before the key would expire and the dungeon would be lost. As he studies the item, vivid memories flood his mind. Flashbacks of the double dungeon, the place where everything began. He realizes something. This may not be random. The system is calling him back, but he's not the same man who once crawled out of that dungeon barely alive. Now he's stronger, far stronger, stronger than anything that temple might hold. He wonders if all of this was orchestrated from the beginning, if that dungeon is still waiting for him, and if it is, then wait for me. Meanwhile, deep inside the Temple of Karen, a shadowy figure stirs. Sitting in the darkness, an entity smirks. Sensing Jin-Woo's resolve from afar, it hears his words and prepares. Jin-Woo is coming. The scene shifts to a dark and eerie dungeon. A man trembles in fear, trapped. In desperation, the man stammers, demanding to know who or what this creature is. But the figure responds coldly as if talking to himself. He's not the one either. A pause lingers in the air. Then the figure mutters again. They're hiding well those brilliant fragments of light. This cryptic remark refers to powerful beings, ancient rulers known as the brilliant light fragments scattered and concealed in human hosts. It's Selid, known as the king of the snowfolk, the monarch of frost. Sensing a familiar aura, Selid turns. Standing in the shadows is Yogman, the king of demonic specters, also known as the monarch of transfiguration. With a calm and confident tone, Yagman announces that he has news regarding the eastern island. Khalid narrows his eyes, asking if he means the small landmass that lies eastward, the one humans call Korea. That island is the current dwelling of the Shadow Monarch. Intrigued, Selid asks if Yagman intends to take action there. Yogman explains that the rulers have begun deploying their legions near that region just south of the Shadow Monarch's territory. He then adds with a hint of ambition that he will be the one to claim that place. But Selid challenges him, pointing out the obvious risk. And how do you plan to deal with the Shadow Monarch himself? Yogman, unfazed, gives a sly smile and responds, if the planner fulfills the contract, everything will go according to plan. Then with growing interest, he adds, besides, the greatest of the brilliant light fragments has been confirmed to be there. This revelation changes everything. Sal's expression sharpens with excitement. He turns toward Yogam, realizing the implications. You came all the way here just to tell me that. Yogman nods slightly, then inquires what Selid plans to do with that information. Selid responds with a smirk. If you're willing to follow me, then why not? But before their conversation can continue, Selid pauses. His eyes scan the surroundings. Something feels off. We've been lured here. A third figure approaches. Selid watches carefully and comments that the man they saw earlier couldn't have possibly held the power of a brilliant fragment. Yet somehow the traces of that power are here. This can only mean one thing. Someone intentionally baited them, and now that someone is standing right in front of them. With burning rage in his eyes, the man confronts them. He demands to know more about the small island to the east. He suspects they're referring to his homeland, Korea. Selid smirks at the man's fury and responds with mockery. And what will you do about it? From behind, Yogman speaks up, clearly uninterested in wasting time. We don't have time to deal with him. They begin to turn away, but Selid can't resist throwing one last taunt. Try and stop us if you can. The man explodes into motion. Furious, he charges toward them with raw power, vowing not to let them escape. But Selid remains still. In an instant, an ice shield forms in front of him, effortlessly blocking the incoming attack. He grins, unfazed, as if amused by the attempt. With a calm but menacing aura, the monarch of frost raises his hand. A pulse of power erupts. A devastating wave of frost energy explodes outward, shaking the dungeon to its core. The scene transitions from the chaos of the battlefield to a quiet parking lot. Jin-Woo walks toward his car. Just as he reaches for the door handle, a voice calls out behind him. Excuse me, he says politely. Are you Jin-Woo? Jin-Woo turns slightly, nodding cautiously. The man introduces himself as Adam White, a senior official from the Federal Bureau of Hunters, a powerful U.S. organization. He hands Jin-Woo a business card and adds with a smile, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Sun. Please feel free to call me Adam." Adam quickly apologizes for the unexpected approach. He admits that Jin-Woo was hard to track down and even mentions that he dropped by Jin-Woo's office earlier. Hearing this, Jin-Woo remembers something. This must be the man Eugene Ho had mentioned, the one asking around for him. Jin-Woo narrows his eyes and asks directly, "What business do you have with me?" Adam remains calm and respectful. He explains that he's here to share important information that piques Jin-Woo's interest. "What kind of information?" he asks. Adam gives a subtle smile, then answers, "Information that no country or institution in the world could provide except for us." Jin-Woo raises an eyebrow. "And why would you share that kind of information with me?" Adam responds without hesitation, "Because people like you are worth sharing it with." "It's mutually beneficial," he continues, revealing that their original purpose for contacting Jin-Woo was something entirely different. But after witnessing what Jin-Woo did during the Jeju Island raid, their deputy director insisted on meeting him in person. "This level of attention is unprecedented," Adam admits. "But the deputy director will explain the details himself." He gestures toward a car parked nearby. "If you'd like, we can take you to him now." Jin-Woo glances at the vehicle, his expression thoughtful. He still isn't fully convinced whether the information is trustworthy. As he opens the door to his own car, he replies, "Let me think it over. I'll contact you." Adam chuckles softly as if expecting that answer. "How silly of me," he says. "I forgot one rule. Never hide a strong hand when trying to strike a deal." He pauses, then says two words that immediately grab Jin-Woo's attention. "An upgrader." Jin-Woo freezes. Adam explains further. "An upgrader," he says, "is an awakened individual with the ability to enhance the power of another awakened being. You've heard of them, haven't you?" As he speaks, the scene shifts. Adam and Jin-Woo are now in a car pulling up to a building where a bigger conversation and deeper truths are about to be revealed. Inside, Adam White leads Sun Jin-Woo into a quiet meeting room. Adam introduces him as Michael Connor, the deputy director of the Federal Bureau of Hunters. Michael stands and shakes Jin-Woo's hand firmly. "It's a pleasure to meet you," he says. With formalities out of the way, Adam takes his seat and mentions that he will serve as their interpreter during the meeting. Wasting no time, Michael slides a stack of documents across the table toward Jin-Woo. The folder contains immigration paperwork. Michael explains that under normal circumstances, acquiring American citizenship would take 1 to 2 years of processing. But for Jin-Woo, all it takes is a word, Michael says confidently. "We're prepared to make you a citizen immediately." Jin-Woo, however, stays focused. He calmly replies, "I came here because Mr. White said you had information to share," and questions, "Is it truly possible to upgrade a hunter's abilities?" Michael smiles knowingly and gives a surprising response. "In fact, the one who can do that is here right now." He turns to one of his staff and says, "Please call Miss Sellner in." Moments later, a woman enters the room with quiet grace and calm confidence. Michael stands and introduces her. "This is Norma Sellner," he says, "the only person in the world who can enhance an awakened being's abilities." Jin-Woo observes her closely. She feels different, not just in appearance, but in the unique aura she carries. She doesn't feel like any hunter I've met before, he thinks. Michael then encourages Miss Sellner to explain her ability in her own words. She steps forward and begins addressing Jin-Woo directly. "I understand if you're skeptical. Everyone I've met had the same look when they first heard this." She pauses, then adds with a faint smile, "But once they experienced it, they beg for more." As she walks toward Jin-Woo, Michael gently calls out to her, keeping the moment grounded. Miss Sellner begins to explain. She tells Jin-Woo that every awakened individual has a natural limit, a ceiling they cannot surpass. A hunter's rank is fixed, and unless they undergo a second awakening, their power will never grow beyond that limit. This fact is widely accepted as common knowledge throughout the awakened world. But then Jin-Woo asks, "So you can change that?" Without hesitation, Miss Sellner nods. "Yes, I have the ability to lift that limit." She goes on to describe a process that happens in 3 stages, a gradual unlocking of a person's true potential. She admits that she didn't know what to call this ability at first, but over time it became known as a force reawakening. Put simply, she can draw out the true strength hidden within an awakened being. Mr. Connor nodded in agreement with Mrs. Sellner, affirming that everything she had explained was indeed true. However, he was quick to add an important limitation. Each time Miss Sellner used her ability, it drained her immensely. Because of this, she could only help around 3 to 4 people in a single year. Jin-Woo remained quiet, but his thoughts were racing. If what they said was true, then he might be one of the few chosen to benefit from such a rare and powerful ability. That alone spoke volumes about its value. Curious, he leaned forward slightly and asked how effective this enhancement process truly was. Miss Sellner responded calmly, explaining that the results varied from person to person. However, for those who completed all 3 stages, the increase in physical capability ranged from 20% to 30%. That number hit Jin-Woo like a thunderbolt. To someone already at the peak of their abilities, a 30% boost was almost unthinkable. He finally understood why someone like Hang Dong-soo had accepted the U.S. offer, even if it meant public backlash. It all made sense now. Who in their right mind would turn down such a chance? Still, a thought crossed his mind. What would happen if others discovered the truth about Miss Sellner's power? Mr. Connor answered that concern without hesitation. That was precisely why the U.S. government kept her under close protection. In exchange for her cooperation, she received full security and a generous salary. In return, she assisted in strengthening select hunters, those deemed valuable enough to receive her gift. With that, Mr. Connor formally reintroduced Miss Sellner to Jin-Woo, stating that her powers would be used on him as a token of goodwill. Jin-Woo, still unsure of their motives, questioned whether this was truly a gift or just bait to draw him in. Connor clarified his position. If Jin-Woo agreed to work with the Federal Bureau of Hunters, he would receive top-tier benefits. They would also personally arrange introductions to any guild he preferred and assist him in negotiating the most favorable contract. Miss Sellner then gently pushed a small plate across the table toward Jin-Woo. She assured him there was no need to rush his decision. They simply wanted him to take time and consider the offer. Jin-Woo looked at her with a hint of surprise. She reaffirmed that, as they had said, this was a gift, not a demand. After a brief pause, Mr. Connor made another proposal. He asked if Jin-Woo would allow them to temporarily remove his limits so that he could experience the effects firsthand. Jin-Woo was taken aback. For nothing in return, he asked. Connor responded that it was to be considered a complimentary demonstration meant only to show him the potential of what was being offered. At that moment, Jin-Woo remembered something Miss Sellner had said earlier, that once he felt the power, he would come back on his own, begging for more. Her confidence now made perfect sense. Miss Sellner then requested that Jin-Woo hold out his hand and look directly into her eyes. She explained this was the first step in the process, watching from the side. Michael Connor observed quietly. From his perspective, Jin-Woo had already taken the bait. He was calm, calculating, and listening. But Connor believed that once Jin-Woo experienced even the first stage, he would come back to them voluntarily, and if he was the impulsive type, he might even sign the papers right then and there. As the process began, Jin-Woo extended his hand toward Miss Sellner. The moment she took hold of it, a faint glow started radiating from his skin. A green aura gradually enveloped him, and a flicker of light ignited deep within his eyes. Mr. Connor silently observed, his mind drifting to Jin-Woo's past achievements. He recalled how Jin-Woo had turned the tide during the catastrophic Jeju Island raid, displaying powers that defied explanation. Even now, he couldn't help but wonder, what more is this man capable of? The energy continued to surge. Miss Sellner's eyes began to shimmer, and her entire body was cloaked in a radiant yet eerie light. Then something shifted. It was as if her consciousness had been pulled elsewhere. Suddenly, everything around her faded into a vast void of darkness. Within that black expanse, a vague outline began to emerge. A shadowed figure stepped forward slowly from the depths. Each step it took brought it closer, closer to her. And then it stood directly in front of her. Its presence was overwhelming. Its glowing, fearsome eyes pierced through her soul. It wasn't just looking at her. It was watching her as if silently warning her that she had trespassed where she shouldn't. Overcome with fear, Miss Sellner let out a scream. The glowing energy shattered. The process came to an abrupt halt. The atmosphere in the room instantly turned hostile. Agents nearby sprang into action, drawing their weapons and aiming them directly at Jin-Woo. Panic and confusion filled the air as they demanded to know what he had done to Miss Selner. But before they could escalate any further, Mr. Connor exploded in rage. Slamming his hand on the table, he yelled at the agents, calling them fools. "Do you even realize who you're pointing your guns at?" he barked. "If you're so concerned, go check on Miss Selner. Don't stand there acting like amateurs." Turning toward Jin-Woo, Mr. Connor lowered his head and apologized. His voice was firm but regretful. The agents had overstepped. Jin-Woo, still composed despite the sudden hostility, accepted the apology with a calm, "It's all right." But the tension wasn't gone yet. Fuming, Mr. Connor walked over to the nearest agent and leaned in, his tone colder than ever. "If this were Thomas Andre or Leo Jagong sitting in that chair," he said, "you'd all be dead right now." The terrified agent could only nod in silence. Connor then turned his attention back to Miss Selner, who was now visibly shaken. Her body trembled and sweat clung to her skin as if she'd just escaped a nightmare. Concerned, he asked if she was feeling unwell. Seeing her condition, Mr. Connor quickly addressed Jin-Woo again, explaining that it would be best to postpone the procedure. Jin-Woo, understanding the situation, agreed without hesitation. With a subtle gesture, Mr. Connor instructed Adam White to escort Jin-Woo out of the room. Once the door closed behind them, the room fell silent, except for the sound of Ms. Selner's ragged breathing. Mr. Connor approached her carefully, his tone softer now. He asked her what had just happened. Miss Selner, still unable to calm herself, finally spoke. Her voice trembled. "He's a king," she whispered, "a powerful one." Connor blinked, startled by the term. "Do you mean like a national-level hunter?" he asked, still trying to make sense of her words. But Miss Selner shook her head. Her expression turned pale. "No, not like that," she said. "I've never seen anything like this before." She repeated the words again, slower this time. "He's a king, but not just any king." She paused at trying to gather herself. "When I looked into him, he looked back at me. Within him, there was nothing but darkness, a depth I couldn't escape from." Her hands were still trembling as she added, "There's no limit to his power." Inside the newly established guild office, Eugene Ho sat at his desk, focused on paperwork. As he wrapped up a few reports, he muttered under his breath with a scoff. "Some people just never learn, filing complaints after getting sued, whining like kids. That's not how this works." After some time, Jin-Ho leaned back and nodded in satisfaction. He believed he had successfully tracked down all the groups that had been spreading false rumors about Jin-Woo. While taking a short break, he suddenly noticed Jin-Woo standing silently behind him. Startled, Jin-Ho turned around. Jin-Woo commented with a smirk, "You're working pretty hard." Jin-Ho could only think to himself, how does he always appear without making a sound? Jin-Woo asked if everything was running smoothly. Jin-Ho reassured him that there were no issues. Then, noticing Jin-Woo's outfit, he asked why he was dressed like that. Without answering directly, Jin-Woo handed him a bag filled with magical cores. "You said we needed funds for the guild," Jin-Woo explained. Opening the bag, Jin-Ho's eyes widened. The contents were more than enough. "Well, I guess we won't need to worry about paying employee salaries anymore," he joked. Jin-Woo tilted his head. "What do you mean?" Jin-Ho reminded him that hiring another guild member meant they'd need to cover that person's salary too. Jin-Woo nodded in agreement. "Even if we're only filling the guild's required numbers, we need someone who's loyal, someone who's in it for the long run, not just a placeholder." Then with a more serious tone, Jin-Ho brought up an important topic. "There's something we need to take care of first," he said. "We need a name for the guild." Jin-Woo sighed dramatically. "I thought it was something serious," but Jin-Ho countered. "It is serious." Jin-Ho leaned in, throwing out suggestions. "How about Sun Yu Guild based on your surname? Or Young, it flows better. Or even Woohoo Guild using the last syllables of our names. Wait, maybe Ginjin Guild based on our middle characters." Listening to all the creative, if slightly ridiculous suggestions, Jin-Woo finally declared his decision. We'll name it Solo Play Guild, he said. Jin-Ho blinked. Was that supposed to be a joke? Before he could respond, a knock came at the door. Jin-Ho got up and opened it. On the other side stood a familiar figure, Hunter Cha-hin. Surprised, he asked, "What are you doing here?" Cha responded directly, "I want to join your guild." Soon after, they sat around the table together. Jin-Woo looked at her with curiosity and asked her to clarify why she was there. Cha repeated calmly, "As I said, I'd like to join your guild." Jin-Woo was puzzled. What's happening? He asked if the chairman had requested her to join, or perhaps if Hunter Cho Jong-in had expelled her from the Hunter Guild. Cha firmly denied both. Looking at her more seriously, Jin-Woo asked, "Then why would you want to join a guild like mine, especially with that name?" Cha raised an eyebrow. "Wait, you really named it Solo Play Guild?" Jin-Woo nodded. "Yeah, what's the problem?" The vice master and I agreed on it. Jin-Ho quickly objected. "Hey, when did I agree to that? What about the names I suggested?" Shifting his gaze to Cha, Jin-Ho subtly examined her breathing and expression. She seemed calm, but he could tell it was an act. She's hiding something. But why? Then he asked bluntly. "You were awakened 2 years ago. You're still under contract with the Hunter Guild, aren't you?" Cha nodded but added, "I have enough to pay the cancellation penalty." That response caught Jin-Woo off guard. "She's even willing to pay the penalty." He replied, "Honestly, our guild doesn't have the resources to match what an S rank like you usually receives." Cha countered effortlessly, "That's fine. I don't need an upfront payment." Jin-Woo frowned slightly. "But there's nothing here for you to gain, so why would you want to join us?" Cha paused, unsure how to explain the thoughts racing through her mind. "If I tell him the truth, it'll sound insane." Her mind flashed back to the Jeju Island raid. She remembered regaining consciousness in a helicopter. The chairman had told her they had just landed at the association and that the hunters would soon be transferred to the hospital. She immediately asked about Jin-Woo. Was he the one who saved them? The answer was yes. She had nearly died, and in the future, something like that could happen again. Next time, I might not survive. Back in the present, she struggled to find the right words, her cheeks reened. "I want to stand by your side all the way to the end." Jin-Woo noticed her silence and the color rising in her face. Why can't she answer? What is she hiding? He asked again. "So you're not going to answer me," Chaw finally responded. "I just want to live a peaceful life. Is that so wrong?" Jin-Woo paused. She's only 22. Carrying the pressure of being an S rank at her age must be overwhelming. After everything that happened on Jeju Island, her choice makes sense. After a moment, he said, "There's an entrance test for our guild." "Surprise?" Cha replied. "That wasn't in the recruitment notice." Jin-Woo shrugged. "Probably a new policy from the vice master." He turned to Jin-Ho. "Can you get us some drinks and snacks?" Jin-Ho left the room. Once they were alone, Cha asked, "So what kind of test is it?" Jin-Woo answered plainly, "You'll have to defeat one of my summons." Cha raised an eyebrow. "Am I really that weak in your eyes? What kind of summon?" Jin-Woo smiled slightly. "For you, Hunter Cha, I'll use my strongest one." Cha stood up. "When's the test?" "Right now," Jin-Woo said. "Let's go to the association gym." He thought to himself, this is the perfect time to test whether shadow exchange works with two people. He turned to her and said, "You don't need to walk. We'll take a shortcut." He stepped closer. "We just need to stick close together for a second." Darkness enveloped them as Jin-Woo activated shadow exchange. They vanished. A moment later, Jin-Ho returned to the office carrying snacks. But when he walked in, he didn't see Jin-Woo or Cha. Instead, standing in the room was a towering high orc. The two stared at each other in complete silence. Then, without a word, the orc reached out, took the food tray from Jin-Ho's hands, and devoured it in one massive bite. Jin-Ho could only blink in disbelief. The scene shifts to the quiet gymnasium of the Hunter Association. Hae-in looked around surprised. She had just arrived through Jin-Woo's teleportation ability. Turning to him, she asked in amazement, "How did you do that?" Jin-Woo, keeping calm, thought to himself, "I was right. Shadow exchange acts like a portal. I can bring someone along." He didn't explain much. Instead, he simply said, "Let's begin." But Chaw paused. She realized she had forgotten her usual weapon. I left it behind, she said. Jin-Woo raised an eyebrow. You mean that pickaxe? Cha frowned slightly. That's not my weapon. Jin-Woo chuckled. I was just kidding. Looking around, Cha mentioned there might be a spare weapon in the storage area. She moved toward the nearby door and opened it, revealing a stockpile of reserve gear. Not top quality, she thought, but decent enough for practice. She eventually emerged holding a standard sword and told Jin-Woo she was ready. Jin-Woo glanced at the blade in her hand. Will you be all right? That's not your usual weapon, Cha responded with resolve. Weapons don't matter. Monsters never fight us on our terms anyway. Jin-Woo nodded slowly. She's right. Now came the question, who would be the right summon? An ordinary shadow soldier wouldn't stand a chance against someone like Cha. After a brief thought, Jin-Woo summoned a powerful knight draped in black armor. Among my forces, he's the best with a sword, Jin-Woo thought. The knight stepped forward. His name was Igras. Clad in heavy black armor and radiating silent intensity, Igras stood ready. Cha asked a logical question. What are the win conditions? Jin-Woo explained. You win by defeating the summon. You lose if you surrender. Even as he spoke, he reflected on his earlier words. I said I'd use my strongest summon, but Boo would overwhelm her. This knight will do just fine for now. With both sides prepared, Jin-Woo raised his hand to begin the test. But just as Cha started channeling mana, Jin-Woo stopped them. Wait a moment, he said, motioning for her to turn around. From his inventory, he pulled out a gleaming blade, the Demon King's longsword. He handed it to Igras. Use this, he ordered. Once the weapon was in place, Jin-Woo gave the signal again. Begin. The battle started instantly. Igras moved first, channeling the power of the enchanted sword. A streak of crackling electricity surged forward, aiming for Cha, but she was already on the move. With a swift motion, she dodged the electric arc with grace and speed. As expected, Jin-Woo thought, she's fast. That sword would have cut down anyone else with a single swipe. What followed was an intense exchange of blows. Igras pressed forward with practiced precision, while Cha countered with sharp instincts and skill. The sound of steel echoed through the facility. Meanwhile, in his office nearby, Chairman Go-hee was reviewing some documents when the noise caught his attention. He paused. No one should be in the gym today, he thought. He reached for his phone and called an assistant. Connect the gymnasium security feed to my monitor. As the footage came into view, his eyes widened. It was Jin-Woo and Hunter Cha. He watched silently for a moment. Then a knowing smile crept across his face. I see. So that's what this is. He remembered Cha's expression from long ago when he had told her that Jin-Woo was the one who saved everyone on Jeju Island. That look now made perfect sense. He turned back to the call. Turn off all surveillance cameras in the gym. Log the inspection today as a routine check. Then he leaned back into his chair. The rumbling from below caused the building to briefly tremble. The chairman felt the vibration and chuckled to himself. They're enjoying their youth, he said with a soft smile. Back in the gym, the fight had reached its conclusion. To Jin-Woo's surprise, Igras was kneeling. Defeated. Cha stood tall, breathing heavily but victorious. She turned to Jin-Woo and asked, Was that Black Knight your strongest summon? She then asked Jin-Woo, You said you'd summon your strongest, didn't you? Please summon him now. Hearing that, Jin-Woo replied, You might get hurt, but she insisted. As she spoke, a dark aura emerged behind Jin-Woo as he summoned Boo. He asked her, Are you sure you'll be okay? Jin-Woo understood something very clearly. Most shadow soldiers were weaker than their living counterparts, but Beru was an exception. Unlike others, Boo had been created for a single purpose, to slaughter hunters. If he fought Chahai with his full strength, her chances of victory would be almost non-existent. With that in mind, Jin-Woo ordered him to defeat her, but without causing harm. The moment the command was given, Boo's aura erupted. A wave of mana exploded outward, shattering lights and windows throughout the building. Hae-in staggered for a moment under the sheer force of it, astonished that Jin-Woo had once faced this terrifying being himself. Boo then completed his monstrous transformation, ready for battle. But before the clash could escalate, Jin-Woo commanded him to sheath his claws. He warned that life would become troublesome if Cha was injured during this test. Startled by the reminder, Beru immediately retracted his weapons. Spotting her chance, Cha lunged forward with a swift attack. Yet in the blink of an eye, Bu was already behind her. Recognizing the same movement from earlier, she countered with a decisive strike, determined not to be deceived again. But her sword never landed. Beru caught it effortlessly in one hand. Calmly, he offered to show the difference in their strength if Jin-Woo allowed him to fight without inflicting harm. Cha refused to relent. She pressed forward, swinging again and again. Yet Bruce slipped past her attacks with frightening ease. He wasn't even moving from his position, simply dodging at close range. Realization dawned on her. This was a gap in speed and power she couldn't hope to close. Then, without warning, Bruce stepped right up to her face and released a piercing scream. The shock wave blasted her off her feet, sending her skidding back across the ground. From the sidelines, Jin-Woo silently concluded that the outcome was already decided. Still, Hae-in rose to her feet, unwilling to yield. She declared she could continue, even after seeing the overwhelming difference. Jin-Woo frowned, questioning what drove her stubborn resolve. Recklessness didn't suit her, not after recognizing Beru's true power. Yet he couldn't ignore the truth. Bu was no ordinary shadow. He was intelligent, merciless, and born to kill. Jin-Woo could still feel that killing intent seeping from him like a blade at the throat. Watching Cha's stance, Jin-Woo worried. If she tried to gamble on a weak point, he could only hope she wouldn't make a fatal mistake. As the clash dragged on, Bu reminded Hae-in of a simple truth. Every creature instinctively knows whether it is predator or prey. To prove his point, he lunged forward with deadly speed, declaring that prey defying a predator could never be tolerated. Cha reacted just in time, dodging his first strike, but Bu immediately prepared another. In that instant, he noticed her gathering mana for a counterattack. She released the blast with precision, landing a direct hit on his shoulder, yet the blow barely scratched him. Bu's hardened exoskeleton absorbed the impact and reduced her weapon to shattered fragments. But this was exactly what Cha had planned. With her remaining strength, she prepared her strongest skill. She knew she only had enough mana for a single attempt, one strike that had to count. Summoning the radiant sword of light, she pierced through the layers of Bu's armor, finally breaking past his defense. Alarm surged through Jin-Woo as he sensed something dangerous awakening within Bu. A buried command etched deep in his very existence by the Insect Queen stirred once more. Annihilate all enemies. The words echoed through Beru's mind as he branded Hae-in an enemy and shifted into pure killing intent. Jin-Woo's order to stop went unanswered. Cha closed her eyes, accepting what seemed like the end. A deafening explosion shook the battlefield. When she opened her eyes again, she realized she was still alive. Jin-Woo had intervened in time, shielding her from certain death. Bu snapped back to his senses, recoiling in horror at his own loss of control. Dropping to his knees, he begged Jin-Woo for forgiveness. Jin-Woo, however, turned his attention back to Cha. He questioned her resolve, asking why she was risking her life for nothing more than an entrance test to a nameless guild. A hunter of her caliber had no reason to gamble everything on something so trivial. Then, almost to himself, he wondered if her determination stemmed from a personal interest in him. The thought left Cha momentarily stunned, while Jin-Woo admitted inwardly that he still could not read her true intentions. And then, in a voice so soft he almost missed it, Cha whispered her answer. She admitted that perhaps his guess was not entirely wrong, and to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you later.